What
Nice.
is up, guys? Happy Wednesday. It's cold as hell in Rio de Janeiro. It's like 65 degrees. I'm not used to this. I had to wear a jacket yesterday going out, and it's like I didn't move here to Rio for this kind of weather. But you know what? Everything's going to be okay because I'm here today with good friend Jono Hendricks. Guys, me and Jono have known each other for a long time. It's like maybe over like 10 years or something. We went to college together, and he is and was and is like one of the wild ones. Like his energy would come into everything that we would do together. We used to ski like 3 times a week at least. We'd go out to like Mount Baker, riding, and it's like we're just going like neck and neck, going hard out in the mountain, and we'd go out and we'd like party and we'd dance and talk to people and do all of these crazy high energy kinds of things. And me and Jono, we've stayed connected throughout this time, throughout these 10 years, and like he has done so many amazing things like with his life and gone through some like transformations like that have been inspiring for I don't even know how many people for him that he's been involved with, that he's inspired. But just me having this loose connection with him has like really been something inspiring for me, especially relevant to now. But so he's got a couple of big things going on. One thing called Stoic Unity. I know you called it something else, but he's bringing together people to have conversations about real life, about philosophy, about opening up, being vulnerable, connecting, which is amazing. I know Jono, you did something in the past too to help people that were wanting to be sober or get over addictions, and you've created a group app around that. And now you're doing something with a brotherhood. What'd you call it? Warrior philosophies.
Warrior philosophers, yeah.
Warrior philosophers, and you're bringing together people. So, I mean, you're just involved in so many great things, so many important things, especially for the world right now. So, really excited to have you on. Thanks for being here. How the hell are you?
What an intro. Thank you. Yeah, man, I'm well. I actually just remembered us at Mount Baker, and like you were always the guy that was just tomahawking down the hill. Like we'd all like come up to the top of the hill, and then RC would just boom, like tomahawk down. We're like, all right, let's go. So that's a good memory, man. But yeah, I'm good. I'm tuning in here from Austin, Texas. And as you mentioned, involved in quite a few projects. But I think that it's really exciting time in my life in that I've been building and holding space for something to become a container for all of these projects to find a home in. And that like larger level, what we might call mother brand, is finally coming to fruition. And so each of the little things that you just touched on are soon to be operating within the same space. And we're in the process of creating kind of like a community of communities, which is, very exciting on the one hand. And then, on the other hand, Warrior Philosophers is a project that I've been deeply passionate about for a long time, which, I think is part of what we're connecting around here today is masculinity and sobriety. And like, men these days, it's just so confusing. Like, what does it mean to be a man, and what is expected of us, and how do we show up, and how do we also take care of our own mental and emotional health, while achieving our goals and not just getting overwhelmed and burnt out with life and finding a desire to escape into drugs or alcohol or porn or sex or gambling or whatever, And so I've just been on this journey, as you kind of touched on, where I got lost in my own darkness a lot for many years, and then chose sobriety almost 8 years ago now. And okay, I was sober, but still, there's no answers, there's no guidebook, there's no how to go about this. So I've been on a journey of figuring that out. And then I have a highly philosophical and analytical mind. So I've been documenting every step of the way and sharing that with the world as much as I can through the process.
Yeah, man. I mean, it is confusing. Like life is confusing, maybe confusing times now. Yeah, it's really difficult to know what is right, what is wrong, like what you can say or should say or shouldn't say. I mean, I'm really on this point right now where I I feel really called to speak, like to say
Mm.
what I think. And I never was in the past. I've always, and I still, am this way. Like I love being able to see both sides. I can rationalize with anybody. I can get in other people's shoes and understand where they're coming from. And I have a very hard time being like, you suck, you're wrong. That way of thinking is totally wrong. Because at the end of the day, it's really not. You can see that maybe someone grew up in a different way and they can have a different path, and you can accept that. And I've been kind of struggling, like thinking about this, do I need to take sides to create a change? Do I need to have this kind of strong opinion from one side? And so I'm doing a ton of studying with history and learning about what's happening in the world. And for the first time, I'm starting to understand more about different belief systems and different types of governments. And I'm saying, okay, so Islamists, like it's not just Islam anymore. It's like, okay, they think this way. This is the life of Muhammad and how it was. This is why they think this and this. Okay, the Vikings, they had this life where they came from this place and they had these people ruling them, and they went to that and they had this kind of system of government, and this is what they believed. So it's like, now that I'm learning about all these different societies and different periods of time, I'm starting to construct these like frameworks of belief, and I'm kind of starting to put myself into maybe these places of how I can express myself, which is really powerful in a way. Like I never understood how to do that, and now I'm kind of doing that. But still, I don't know. It's still very like, yeah, where do I belong? I'm trying to create this unity within myself of like who I am, and I have my business, but I have me, and I want to promote marketing, but I also want to promote my spiritual beliefs and my spiritual belief systems and put that out. And I honestly, I don't know how to do it.
I love it. I love it. There's so many different ways I could riff off that, like so many different tangents. But I think that the biggest one that you're touching on that I'm really excited to drop into a bit is, so we built Stoic Unity, and Stoic Unity was a byproduct of these philosophy nights that I just started hosting. I was living in Uluwatu, Bali, and just wanted to talk philosophy with friends without it, being this thing that kind of leaked into the rest of my day and life and work. And so I just set aside 2 hours a week and was like, hey, we're having philosophy night now. And that blew up. And then transient nature that Bali is, so many people were coming through and leaving and being like, how do I take this with me? Like, this was so amazing. So eventually I was like, all right, cool. Let's take it online. Let's start hosting Zoom calls and see what we can make of this. And anyways, I say all of that to say, like, what you're touching on in that, like, having an opinion versus not, and also remaining open to the expansion of your worldview and understanding this is what we are now calling philosophical self-development. And the differentiating factor of philosophical self-development from, like, let's say the rest of the personal growth industry right now is that there is no one showing up as some kind of self-proclaimed guru. There is no one showing up and saying, like, here's the answer, here's the path, do it the way I did it and you'll make it. Like, sure, that works for some people, but for 90% of people it doesn't, and they go buy another course and another course and another course trying to find something for themselves, right? When the truth is, somewhere underneath all the societal conditioning, your truth is already within you, right? And so how do we find that? What does that look like? What does that mean? Well, we figure it out through discourse. We have conversations, right? And you share your opinion and I share my opinion. And if we can do so in a container that is loving and supportive of the idea that your opinion is just as valid as mine, and neither of us is quote unquote correct, then we have the opportunity to explore deeper, right? And when we do this in larger and larger groups, the collective intelligence emerges. And actually the collective intelligence becomes kind of the teacher, guru.
Yeah. Now, I feel you. But is that really true, though, that everyone's opinion can be the right one, that they have the right way? So I think about this in marketing. So when I teach marketing, I don't know everybody else's way. Like, everybody does marketing different. Like, the only way that I can teach it is, this is the path that I learned, and this is the way that I know how to make sales, and I know how to do things. So learning from me, like, this is my method, and I'm going to teach you my method to do it. And it's and if you work with me, then it's going to work, for you. It should work for you because you're the kind of people I'm trying to attract, and I teach you this.
Yeah.
And so, and there's some marketing that really sucks. Some people that teach it, they teach it like either to the wrong people, or maybe it's just like they don't have the right principles in place that people are learning for it to work. So like how do we, and I always thought, okay, well, can I really teach marketing? Because I don't know, like, this is the only way that I know is mine. Like, what if it's not good enough? Or what about these other people making money? Do they have a better system? Or so like, I definitely agree that we need to understand other people's viewpoints. But as we've seen, like in the world, like some people's viewpoints and opinions like really suck and they're kind of wrong. So how do you deal with people maybe, or like, how do you deal with those belief systems that maybe aren't right, or at least you don't think they're right?
Well, and this is where it gets really philosophical. I mean, I'm super happy that you're asking this, because the underpinning question within everything that you're posing is, okay, well, what is right? Like, and we all have our own moral compass and our own understanding of what is right and wrong. And if we allow ourselves to be radically honest with ourselves, as you were touching on earlier, that's the byproduct of our conditioning, right? If I was born in Iran, I would have a completely different worldview than being born on the West Coast of America, right? And so my orientation around right and wrong and what is good and bad and just and unjust in this world on the human level is entirely subjective to our upbringing and our social conditioning and the belief structures and stories that we've formed around our experiences in life, right? Like, we all are seeking meaning. We need meaning in order to understand why continuing to live is worthwhile. And so as we pursue the creation of meaning, we create belief structures and stories and then identify with those necessarily so. But if we okay, so I think the biggest thing in that is a repositioning of our understanding of success. So right now, most of the human psyche is, I would argue, conditioned into believing that success is an individual journey, right? And that, like, in order for me to succeed, I need to figure out something that is unique to me, and I need to climb this ladder, and I need to become something, and me. Where, like, if we could, as a species, shift to an understanding of success being a collective journey, and that, like, if I, for example, only qualified myself as successful once I knew that everyone else around me was successful, like, that's what made me successful, was that other people were thriving, right? If every single human being was operating and thinking in that way, then the way that we relate to each other, the way that we show up in conversation and in cooperation and go about our daily lives and business would shift, like, fundamentally into something arguably the opposite, right? And so that gets into, like, the philosophical nuance of human psychology and looking at the subjective emergence of, moral constructs and religions and things across the world. And I think underpinning all of that, to just simplify it, at the end of the day, every single human being wants the same two things: more happiness and less suffering. And if we can just come to an understanding that that is true for every single human being we ever have or ever will encounter, and we can just understand that everything they're thinking and doing and operating towards, and the actions that they're taking and the words that are coming out of their mouth, all exist for them to find more happiness and less suffering in their life, and realize that that's exactly why we're doing everything that we're doing too, then underneath all the noise, you could say, is just that opportunity for connection.
Yeah. Totally feel that. Like, I think that's the most important thing when you're walking out in, like, normal life. Like, that's how I try to treat everyone. Like, one of my best like techniques that I ever share with anyone is, this is what I call it, the brother sister mindset. And it's like, if you're just, standing in line at the grocery store, or you're walking around outside, sometimes you feel that kind of like tension of like, maybe you're being observed, or you're just around people you don't know. You're like, what do I do with my hands? Like that kind of thinking when you're around people. I think, well, these people, this person around me, this woman standing in front of me, like, what if she were my sister? How would I act? How would I be acting right now? What if this, this person I'm walking next to, what if he were my brother? How would I feel? How would I act? What would my body language be like? I would not care about what I'm doing, like any kind of fidgeting. I just feel totally comfortable and at easement of where I am in space. So I think, I like have that written here. I might even get a tattoo on my arm or something like that. This whole brother sister mindset. So just what a way to operate through the world, and give that lovingness to someone who's like homeless on the street, or someone who's like just seems weird, because we have those prejudgments when we see people. It's like, well, no, they're like my brother or my sister. I'd be like, yeah, you're weird and you're different, but I love you. I don't like love you, but I accept you because you're a part of my family. Just like whatever. Maybe I think you're like a weirdo, but I just love you. You're part of my family. We're in this together, kind of idea.
I love that.
Yeah. But a lot of people too, as we've seen, there's a problem. Like a lot of people do like bad things, and a lot of people don't care about us. And, for me, to be honest, like the only people I really care about are like in my immediate family. Like the people that I do things for, like, is for my family, my cousins, like the people that I'm with, like on the day to day. If I was going to do something or like want to make people's lives better, it would really be the focus is on them. Now, that's not like true for everything. Like when I work with clients, I have people that I become friends that I really, care about, and I want to do good for them. I kind of have, I don't know if it's a negative attitude, but it's almost like I have these two sides. Like one, I could be total. I thought to myself, and there's the dilemma kind of, but I've made a decision. I thought, would I be happy? Could I be happy just ignoring everything, ignoring the world, and just being by myself, traveling country to country, city to city, eating places, talking to people, not really doing much to help the world? And kind of frozen. Are you still there? Probably still there. But just like doing things to just like for myself, or should I have this undertaking of where I'm trying to like help the world, like be my best and go out there and like do great things and connect everyone and spread good ideas and do all of this? And the answer has always come down to the second option. I need to realize my potential and do that. So I'm going to stop here. I'm not sure if you're still there, Jono. Kind of frozen up. Oh, shoot. Jono has been booted. No, not booted. Internet. Yo.
That was so strange, man. My whole computer just like went pink and then turned off for a second. Anyways, here we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so last thing I was saying, because I want to ask you a question too, but the last thing I was kind of saying was, I love these. There's always a mix of me in both the idea that the collective and the individual. And Brazil here is very collectivist. There's a lot of like really rich people, and even mostly like the middle class, or mostly the middle class is like very, poor. Like nobody here can go travel anywhere. So it's like there's this idea of like we're kind of very together, and we're all like going through this kind of same shit together kind of idea. And it's very more collective, but and I really love that. I've loved experiencing that. But I think I'm very like on the individualistic side. Like I believe that the only way that I can save the world or help anyone is like I really need to focus on like being my best self. You know, it's not about putting others first. It's about putting myself first. And with that, I can overflow into the world. You know, it's getting to the same. I know it's getting to the same thing, but but like for you, I really wanted to ask you this about this idea of brotherhood, of what that means to you and how that fits into the idea of your responsibility for helping others and being present for others, because that's really something I'm trying to figure out. You know, how can I create groups, and how can I share my ideas and systems with others, maybe in a way that starts as a kind of group, and how do you plan on spreading that to more people too?
Yeah, man, I'd love to touch on that. Community is my jam. Like, there's one proverb quote I want to share from what you were saying, just because I think it's really fitting and powerful. It's an African proverb, and it says, I'm slightly paraphrasing, but it says, child who feels neglected will burn the entire village down just to feel its warmth.
Oof. Wow.
You know, and so when you touch on, you were bringing up at one point, like, that there are people doing bad and doing ill in this world, like, for sure that's true, but the antidote to that is not shame or guilt, it's human connection. You know, and 100% with then where you took that is like community is the answer, right? Like, and what I was saying about the guru even earlier is like the age of the guru is over. Like the guru more often than not creates separation, right? And this we place what we are each individually capable of on some kind of pedestal and give the glory of that potential to someone else, you know? And so I like to say the age of the guru is behind us and the age of community is upon us. And I think the more and more that we can lean into community, the more and more that we can be there for each other, support each other, and like honestly believe in one another, the more the good-hearted nature of humanity will emerge. I think right now a lot of like the geopolitical landscape and media conditioning has us convinced that like other people are bad, and therefore in order to protect our own goodness we have to like have this wall, you know. But in the twinkle of every human being's eye, if you really look for it, you can see their heart and soul.
Well, what is the guru then? Like, who leads? Like, don't we need a president? You know, don't you need to be the leader of your family, the leader of your community? So why is the guru a bad thing?
Yeah, not necessarily a bad thing, but I think our current orientation and relationship to the concept relinquishes the power of the voice that is the collective. And without going down rabbit holes, one could argue that that's a conditioned mindset, that the self-proclaimed gurus and leaders of this world intentionally condition the masses to believe that the voice of the masses was not significant or strong, right? But that's what that done is removed us from our philosophical nature. It's removed us from being curious, right? It's like, here's the rules, here's the blueprint, fall in line or you're a bad human being. And so like our actual human nature, our childlike curiosity and wonderment and desire to just play in this life is like squashed.
Yeah,
You
so there are
know?
bad leaders. Like, there's a lot of bad leaders in the world. Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't seem like it's necessarily a problem with the guru. It's just that there's bad gurus. There's people that like lead cults and say, you know, they take advantage of vulnerable people and make them do things for their good. But then we also have the people like, you know, like the Martin Luther King Juniors and the Robert F. Kennedys, and like these like great leaders that we looked up to and wanted to follow. I mean, one thing that I've been disappointed of, and I've written like multiple posts about this, that I've never felt like I've had a leader, like a president, that I've ever looked up to. Like, I don't think in our generation there's really been someone that I've been like proud as a president or a leader like that. And I think we do need that, because regardless of whether people should need leaders in the grander scheme of things, like, most of the population isn't like you and me, like people that work 12 hours a day on their business and have huge ambitions, and we're able to go through transformations. And I think, you know, one of our missions should be to do that, to awaken more people and give them that power. Like, that's one of my greatest missions, is to help people realize they have the potential to do great. But the whole world, I don't think the whole world is meant to be entrepreneurs. Like, that's not really the point either, that everyone should do that. And there are people that they do need, you know, we need leaders. You know, just because we
100%.
are leaders doesn't mean we don't have leaders too. It's just a matter of, like, we need to give leaders, we need to give more people. Okay, maybe we need to give everyone that base of mindfulness, of being able to see other people as brothers and sisters, see them in a positive light, you know, be able to think critically for ourselves, have self-esteem, have those hobbies, and like find our way, so that the leaders that do rise will have that base. And then we can have better leadership in the world, which then trickles down into just having everyone in the world, you know, being better.
100%. I love it. And I think there's perhaps a distinction between leadership and sovereignty, right? Because, like, to lead your own life, regardless of your status in society, is to be sovereign, right? So, like, when I talk about every individual's ability and empowerment to have a voice, speak a voice, hold steadfast in that, believe in themselves, and feel supported by a loving community, that's the emergence of individual sovereignty, which then becomes collective sovereignty. And then amongst a sovereign ideological outlook, what I would call true leaders emerge, right? And you're spot on that, like, you know, this has been studied. There's bell curves all over the place about this, that, like, on average, 80% of humanity doesn't want to, like, take the initiative and lead. And then of the remaining 20%, there's a trend line. And then there's like 5% that are super ambitious and will always inherently be the ones in leadership. And that takes us back to what I was saying about success being an individual, like, individual versus collective journey. Like, we can look case in point at, like, senators in US politics, right? Like, being a senator is a career position. It's not meant to be. It's not how the US government was designed, right? There's even, like, the National Reform Act that has been posed for I don't know how many decades that is proposing the notion that senators go back to an 8-year cap and that they can't serve for any more than 8 years. But of course, they have to vote to pass that bill, and they table it for however many decades they've tabled it. But the idea there is that, like, being a leader representative of your community is an honor, and it doesn't remove you from the community, right? Like, right now, our government is removed from the general population, and they've established a career, and they have no intentions of ever returning to whatever they did before they became a politician. Where on the flip side of that, if you were a doctor, for example, and well revered in your community, and your community appointed you to be, let's say, senator, right? And you went and served for 8 years on behalf of your community, knowing that in 8 years you would come back to that community and resume your position as doctor, then you would actually operate with the intentions and desires of the betterment of that community at your core function, right? And so that, like, that's one representation of how, if we choose to lean more and more into a community-centric approach, then the true nature of our desires will emerge, right? And we'll stay less, theoretically, we would stay less in the ego mind of the greed and the betterment of self at the cost of others, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. That's good point there. Like, I mean, that's why we have term limits for the president, right? It's like 4 years, you're in and you're out, and you're going to be there. But there's all the career politicians. Yeah. Like, I just, was just watching a video about something the other day. Like, a lot of the people that are senators that are like become lobbyists, and they go from, like, being lobbyists to being in power. And then so maybe they start off like as a lobbyist for like the FDA, or I don't even know if that makes sense. Like not the FDA, but like for like some food companies, like some massive corporations that have a ton of money. And then they're like lobbying these senators. And then the senator, once their term is up, they just go and work for that company. And then they go and like, back all the policies that they want. So it's just this like backing of corporations and government working together. And it's not doing stuff that's helping the people. So yeah, that kind of stuff happens. And it's like with human nature, we're so it seems, because yeah, we can see the big grand scheme of things, but if I'm like a guy that's like a senator, or I own a company and I have millions of dollars, like I'm not sure I should be thinking about everybody else and how it affects these farmers out in Texas. But like, really, I'm just here and I've got my family and I've got my circle of friends that we're all getting rich. Like, it shouldn't be like that, but that seems like how it is. And it's so hard to think about. It's so hard to have this collective consciousness because we're so far removed. Like even with the wars that we're having right now, in Vietnam, you got people coming back home that are like messed up, all of these soldiers that are, have this like massive PTSD, and we're hearing about people dying by the thousands. And so we're like, war is bad. We should stop doing that. But right now we're in this like spiritual ideas war where we don't even see the effects. We can't even see what is actually like happening to people. Like we see sickness, but we don't know how it's happening. We don't know really where it's coming from. So we're in the middle of like World War III right now, but it's an information war. And there's like, when there's these proxy wars happening and we don't even know where it's coming from. So like, what do we, it's so hard to make that collective thing. And, that's why I always come back to the individual in the end, because like the only thing that I can do, only I can control, if the more like individuals that I can help be sovereign, think critically for themselves, understand that they don't need to, that they have enough personal power and personal self-love that they can see things that are happening and not just be swayed by charlatans and charismatic speakers like myself, and just like think and like have like a vision for what they want to do in life, love their family, then that can trickle into, some kind of collective consciousness change.
100%. Are you familiar with Dunbar's number?
No, I've heard of that, but no.
Dunbar's number is like this massive study done by some guy with the last name Dunbar, but he concluded that we have like an emotional bandwidth that kind of caps out at 150 close connections. And once we start having like we can't actually maintain the complexity of understanding all the connections between all of the people once we start passing 150. And so what you're touching on there is spot on. Like there's to think about all 8 billion human beings on the planet and how they're doing and what's going on in their lives and whether or not they're emotionally stable or financially thriving or living under a like the mind cannot fathom that, right? And so we just check back out and we're like, all right, well, like the people in my immediate vicinity, I can fathom that and I can do good here, which is beautiful and amazing. And at scale, the ripple effect of that is profound. It's why, Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. Why, a lot of these previous guru individuals have said, Abraham Hicks, just work on yourself. That's all you need to do. And I think it's because that ripple effect does eventually hit like a tipping point and spreads out. And I think that's beautiful and that's amazing. The larger question or thing to look at, and I can circle back here to your original point on Brotherhood, is the systems that we're consciously building to live within, right? Like right now, human consciousness has surpassed the systems that we are living within. And as a result, the systems are collapsing. Right? The people who currently sit in power at the top of these systems are doing everything they can to like keep them together, but they're collapsing and they inevitably will collapse, and they will do so because our consciousness has superseded the confinement of those systems. And so the problem then that we face as a species is the creation of new systems. And I think that like this, a lot of the stuff we've touched on so far is more psychology and philosophy, but then there also comes the implementation aspect of that, right? And you asked about brotherhood, and I think it was before we actually started going live, but you were referencing a post I made where like brotherhood is the act of rebellion, and this highlights that for us, right? Like systemic design is an inherently masculine way of thinking and being, right? If we were just to simplify masculine, feminine, and feminine being much more feeling oriented and masculine being much more logical, rational, system design oriented, and then assuming that, you know, biological men are traditionally more masculine, right? Then the design of the systems of the new earth are going to be largely contingent upon who and how the men that gather decide to build those, right? And so in that context, to truly step out of the systems that are currently attempting to restrict this expansion, men need to come together and lovingly and compassionately build new systems, right? Like if you think of the old systems, or what we could call the old paradigm, as like a house that's burning down, right? Then what I call Earth 2.0, or the new paradigm, is the new house, right? So when the old house burns down, everybody's going to run out of it. And then they're going to be standing out in the field or out in the void, you could say. And they're going to be like, all right, cool. Well, where do we go now? What? Okay. Like we didn't die in the burning down house, but now, like you said, 80% of people are going to be like, well, now what do we do? Where do we go? You know? And the new house either is or is not going to be there to invite everyone in based on whether or not strong men choose to get together and build that house.
So why will strong men want to build this house? Like, what's going to be different? Because I totally think you're right that we're starting to see how the system is broken. Like even just recently with these like fake AI crowd images. God, it's hilarious. You know, from both sides. Both sides, I see people like posting like images of like the fake crowd. Oh, look at Kamala's crowd. Trump couldn't have this, and Trump's like, look at Trump's crowd. Kamala could never do this. And then there's like, you know, you can like see Photoshop stuff, and it's like, I mean, that's just a blatant example of how people campaigning are lying about what they're saying and doing. And, you know, I think we're seeing more and more of that. Like as technology is progressing, we're able to take power back. We're able to, I don't know, fact check things or like see through some of the lies and get all these different perspectives. That's why this stuff is so important. Like all these conversations that people are having is so important because we don't have to follow one news source. We have all these different people we can learn from. And that's breaking that down. You know, people are no longer able to hide at the top, like see what's going on from all these inside sources and opinions. But what, you know, why should, I mean, what does that look like? What does World 2.0 look like? What's going to be different about it?
I mean, that's the question. The exact empirical answer to that question is yet to be determined. Like that, the building of that earth falls upon our generation, right? All of these people currently in power, I mean, they're fucking in their 80s, dude. Like, let's just be blunt. They're going to be dead very soon, and their opinions are no longer going to be relevant, right?
It's all very old. Like, there's a lot. And it's like, we haven't even had what about new candidates? I think about that all the time. Like, why aren't there any younger candidates that have come into the presidency or that are just, I don't know, in the Senate, anywhere? You know, we've had like on the left, like AOC, who, I don't know, like she's there and she's young, like really agree with her, but she's like doing stuff like getting up on stage and like having like parties, you know, she's like dancing around and hyping people up and a lot of people like, that's like crazy and stupid. This isn't politics. This is like some kind of college rally. And I'm like, well, I mean, but this is like marketing. This is like young people. This is
Yeah.
reaching a different generation. This is kind of how people do things these days. And it is different.
I think a lot of the younger generation is, at least in my network and the people that I'm talking to, like, is building the new house. Like trying to climb the political ladder of the current US government, or arguably any government on the planet right now, is like,
is that the best? Is that a good way though? Like government, like what do you think is the best way for like guys like us to make change? Because you know, my mom always said I should run for president. No, she didn't say that. I always said that I should run for president, and like it got support from her, whatever. But I think, is that actually the best way for us to like create change? Is like to be in politics and be the president? I don't think so.
No, exactly not. And that's why I talk about like the reemergence of community and of the collective intelligence. Like, you will always have elders, and you will always have leaders, and you will always have warriors, and you will have cooks, and you will have fishermen. Like, people will naturally diversify themselves across the collective, right? But if the psychological orientation is that we rise together, then everyone's going to show up and do their part and move forward together, right? Like, the problem with the way that the systems are currently built is they're very top down, hierarchical, and that was necessary 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, right? Like, we build systems to manage complexity of data, right? So like, we're constantly being bombarded with data and information, and it's way too much and it's way too complex, and so we need to compartmentalize and organize it in order to find some semblance of peace in our day-to-day lives. And so like, the systems that currently exist were necessarily built to organize and manage complexity as the world scaled from however many hundreds of thousands of people we started with to the 8 billion human beings we have now, right? But then the consciousness has surpassed the systems, and so the systems will develop anew to manage that complexity. But we have different tools, different resources, different frames of mind now for how to go about managing that complexity, right? So we can, like, instead of everything being top down hierarchical, we can build more fractalized systems, much more circular in dynamic and in decision making, and bring voice back to what is currently like the bottom of the hierarchical pyramid. If that triangle becomes a circle, right, then within that circle you might have people who are like powerhouse leaders, but they're within the collective. Is that landing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like to think of it like, I think decentralization is a good way to put it.
100%.
Decentralization,
or distributed
like
decision
ideas. Yeah, and I like the idea of. So I had a client the other day, and he said, like, Ryan, like, I think, like, you know, I love the brand, and his brand is his name. And he's like, I love that. I think it's a strong brand, but but if you could describe what we're doing in one word, what would that be? I think we need something that feels bigger. That's like more corporate. And I said, man, I think the last thing the world needs or wants right now is something bigger and more corporate. Like like this client has a lot, like tons of like people supporting him. He's got this huge network. He has a very strong personal brand. And it's like, I don't think you need to go more corporate and try to be bigger. Like, I think what we need are more people that have their own businesses and have their own smaller communities. So it's just like more, like we empower more people to create businesses. Doesn't have to be multi-million dollar businesses. Not everybody needs to do that. You can not easily, but more people should just have like 6-figure businesses where they're very comfortable and they have their own group of clients and communities. We have more people doing that. And then we have smaller circles of like ideas that are more decentralized, more transparent. Like, sure, there's a core philosophy, but these people can learn from their community, and they have other communities that they learn from. Yeah, creating this circular effect, like you're talking about.
100%.
Like, that seems to be the best way. And I have a question for you on that. So, if you could give a basic step-by-step blueprint on creating a community, what would that be? I know that's really broad, but if you could give like a kind of step
Yeah.
blueprint?
I mean, I think that's a good question. I should probably have a more detailed answer to that.
Well,
But
it's hard.
I don't necessarily have a step by step, but some of the key fundamentals that jump out that I can definitely highlight, like first and foremost is culture, right? Like when you're building a community, you're asking people to choose to associate their energy with other people, right? And you're only ever going to make that choice if you feel aligned with those people.
Yeah.
And so like the culture is the bedrock, right? And not just like company culture, not just like here's our five values, here's our mission and vision statements, but like how are you interacting with each other? How are you engaging? How are you, if we have a disagreement, how does that unfold? What does that look like? What kind of emotions do you experience and do I experience? And then as a result, what kind of emotions is the collective experiencing? Right? Is it tense and tumultuous and edgy, or is it loving and caring and supportive? You know, and that will determine what kind of people choose to show up in your community, and will also create like a magnet for the people who want to be resonating on that frequency. And so I think that culture is at the bedrock, and understanding exactly how you want to operate much more specifically than what you're doing per se.
Hmm.
And then what you're doing also is important, because then people have passions, they have a purpose, they have a meaning they want to, give their efforts towards. So then it's like, okay, where is this going? Right? What are we doing? What specific problem are we solving? And then how exactly are we going about it? Those are the fun aspects that get people involved. And I think where communities become sticky, where people stay, and this is just my experience, is when they feel like they're part of something meaningful, when they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves or even bigger than the community, right? Like we are all doing something that is going to bring meaning and purpose to my life. And I am an intricate part of this. I feel validated. I feel excited about showing up. My efforts are honored and respected and incorporated into the larger movement. When people feel that sense of self-empowerment, they're going to wake up every morning and be like, I want more of it.
Mm, nice. Yeah, I think, man, that purpose part feels really huge. Like the culture part is tough. Like, do you have rules for that? Do you? I mean, I think it comes like a lot just from the leader who sets the tone, and yeah, like what you encourage to or say is acceptable and not. And it kind of culture seems like something you can't like set in terms from the beginning. It has to grow and has to evolve. But I think
100%.
the mission part is super important. Like, where are we going? Yeah, what is this gonna do for your life? How do you create something that other people can get on board with on board with the direction, and they know that when they're with you, when they learn from you, you're taking them to a place, or this group is taking them to a place that's going to make their life better, something they're a part of. That's something I'm really trying to think about and figure out for myself and my business. Like, I'm not, because I'm not just about teaching you how to make money in your business. Like, it's about spreading ideas. It's about bringing better leadership to the world. And it's like, that sounds great, but I got to make it more for like the person, like
Mm.
what is that going to do for you? Like is it that you're gonna should be about growth, maybe if you learn my marketing systems and philosophies, you're going to be able to help more people and not have to, spend a bunch of, that's kind of the sell. You don't have to spend a ton of extra time to install a marketing system that brings you clients, it brings you more clients so that you can affect more people. But I don't know, it's tough.
I mean, it's a process, man, for sure. I think that the key thing there is like we're also in a new world now, right? Like one of my friends who's like a branding expert, she always refers to as like the market now is what she refers to as digital natives. right? So like the baby boomers transitioned into cell phones and advertisements 24/7, etc. So the way that you marketed to them is different. Like nowadays you have people who grew up with 10,000 million advertisements in their face every single day, and so they're just numb to it all, right? And so like when you're talking to this like digital native crowd, the most important thing in the future, besides community and connection to other human beings, is going to be authenticity,
Mm.
right? Like people, like what you want to build a magnetic brand, they say. Like magnetic branding is just being authentic, right? Like you said, having that desire to speak your voice more is like the people who are doing that just unapologetically, like this is who I am, and if half of you unfollow me, whatever, right? They're building like truly authentic brands. And then maybe half their followers unfollow them as they lean into that. But then that new space has been created for more people to come who are like exactly aligned with that, right? So the culture, it's hard to build on the one hand, like conceptually, how do we design that? But like underneath that is actually the simplest thing ever, which is just like be authentically exactly who you are and be it loud and proud.
It's fucking hard. It takes a lot of, if you're a man, it takes a lot of balls. If you're anybody, it takes a lot of something to like speak your
Yeah.
mind. Like it's very scary to me to say anything. Like even this conversation, we haven't like really gotten very polarizing, but even like, I'm saying things here that, I wouldn't give my opinion so much. I haven't like, I don't know, I haven't done a lot, but even like talking about politics, I was very like both sides, or talking about AOC or stuff like that. Like I can very much give my opinion about politics and what I think about the left and my dislike for what's going on. But then I think, about woke culture, what happened at the Olympics with like the whole opening ceremony. I thought that was disgusting, like that. And like, what do you like? Come on. And maybe we could save that for another time or something. I know
Well, I think the important piece within that is, and for anyone that's listening to this, like this is so crucial for us to acknowledge and embrace as truth, is that like that fear is conditioned into us. If you think back to when you were a 3-year-old learning how to speak, like when you wanted to take a nap, like you laid down and you took a nap. When you wanted to go to the park, you were like, I want to go to the park right now. Now is playtime. I don't care. Let's go. Right? When you were hungry, you were like, I'm hungry and I'm going to scream and cry until you honor my feelings. Right? And so like we aren't born scared of speaking our truth. Right? We're born very expressive and very curious and very explorative. And then the inability of the adults to hold the scope and breadth of emotions that come with youth leaves the adults conditioning the youth into diminishing that breadth of expression, right? And so what we have there is like, if we as adults can do the healing work and cultivate the capacity to hold that full range of emotions, right? If a child is screaming and crying, does that trigger us? Does that activate us? Does that anger us? Or are we just like, okay, cool. It's a 2-year-old. It's crying. That's what they do, like, and how do we socially and emotionally relate to that will determine the magnitude by which that child remains openly expressive in their adulthood. Right. And so most of us, like our generation who are realizing all of this, were born and raised in a conditioned suppression of that expression. Right. So I think that this is super important because like that fear is shared. Like I used to be much more quiet online many years ago as well, right? And still there are things I know and could talk about and we're not going to go there for a number of different reasons. But the piece to understand within all of that is that fear is conditioned, right? And it's not about pointing fingers at anyone who did the conditioning per se, but just to understand that that's not our natural state. And the more that we lean into personal growth and community and shadow work and the exploration of our true selves, the more that fear subsides, right? And then when we're in community, right, and we speak our truth, and whether or not the community agrees with us, they applaud us for speaking our truth, right? Then you get that validation, that hit, and then you do it again and again and again. And if we can continue to support that in other people, like, even if I don't agree with someone, man, if they're speaking their opinion, I sit there and I'm like, I'm so happy that you have this power right now, and they might say a whole bunch of stuff that, like, I don't agree with at all, but I'm gonna sit there and smile and be like, yes, good for you. As long as you're not trying to belittle or demean me or make me feel small in the process, right? But that is what we're calling philosophical self-development, right? Like, you have an opinion and it's okay to share it. And actually, when you do, we're all better for it.
Amen. Hell yeah. Yeah, man, absolutely. Like, yeah, I love that. I love everything you just said. And like, that's really where I want to get to. I get so much inspiration from the podcasts that I listen to, like, Joe Rogan and Lex Friedman and this guy, Rich Roll. And there's like all these, like, these podcasts, like, and these people that are speaking, that are being listened to the most in the world, they are the people that are really being authentic, giving their opinions, and really just like sharing their truth, regardless of if others, nobody listens to a podcast where people are just like, hey, yeah, that's a great point. Here's another great vanilla point. Yeah, here's another vanilla thing. And it's like, it's great. I mean, those are great talks, but that's not what I want to do anymore. Like, I want to get into the tough subjects. I want to give my opinions, and I want to work on not being afraid, because I know that this what is necessary to build a strong community and to really affect change is to say things, not just to stir up controversy, or maybe to do that too. Maybe to be in a little extra polarizing, like, just to do it. But like, really, it's just so that what I believe needs to come out. And I think I'm just afraid of getting it wrong sometimes. I'm just afraid of that. Well, I was wrong. But that's the thing is too, you're gonna be wrong. You can't know everything at one time all the time. And that can't stop you from saying what you believe. So, okay, man. So, I want to pass it off to you for the end, but I think this would be a good time to wrap this up. We can continue the conversation at another time, but yeah. So any, response to that or final thoughts here?
Yeah, man. I mean, if we look at the way that you chose to title this thing and being more badass and building Earth 2.0, brotherhood is indicative of community, sisterhood, and then us coming together, brothers and sisters. Like, the future is built on the back of those who choose to come together, right? And so the more that we remain in this ideology of separation, this ideology of scarcity, this somehow collective notion that our neighbor is bad and that we have to protect ourselves, like, that the more that we consciously choose to remain in that frame of mind, we give away our power every time we choose to remain in that frame of mind, right? But the more that we choose to come together, the more that we choose to see the heart and soul in the other, the brother sister mentality that you spoke of, do that once, do that twice a day, as much as you can, and it will eventually become your modus operandum. It will eventually become your way of operating. And the more and more humans that do that, the more and more tight-knit our communities become, and the more and more collective power will emerge from within. So if there's anything I could sign off on, it's just like, community is the future. If you're not part of a community yet, find one, reach out to RC or myself and get involved, because that's where the birth of your awakening is going to find itself.
Oh yeah, you heard the man. Get involved. Get involved.
Love it.
Hey, what's up,
Love it,
Michelle?
man.
What we become. We think what we become. Yes, that is the truth. All right, y'all. Thanks again, Jono, and we'll do this again very soon.
Yeah, love it, brother. Thank you.